How to stop paying invalid debts legally. Got my notes right here, so I'll be referring to my notes, looking at them. But I wanted to talk to you guys about the essence of debt discharge and essentially the route that I take when it comes to debt discharge. Okay? It may not be the traditional route or what people think is the way to discharge debts. It may be an aspect of you think it's some magic lotion or potion. You think, I'm going to tell you a one surefire way to discharge debts. But what I'm about to teach you in this video is essentially going to be the method that I use to be able to put the debt collector in a position to where they cannot come after you for debt, to where they cannot prove the debt to you. Now, are you paying debts that you don't even owe? Because if you are, you need to watch this video. And you may ask, okay, well, how do you know that I don't owe a debt? Well, you can go and check out my previous videos where I talk about House Joint Resolution 192, where I talk about the evidence that essentially back up the fact that your bills are prepaid. Okay, you can look at the Truth in Lending Act and find out who the creditor is. The creditor is essentially a person or a corporation, a natural person or a corporation. All right. The only person that can get consumer credit is a consumer. Okay. You extend credit to yourself. And until you realize that, you will never believe that you can discharge debt. You would never believe that all your debts are invalid. Now, before I dive into it, this is not legal advice. Okay. And essentially what I'm trying to get you guys to understand, or what I really want you guys to get from this, is to be empowered to either go view the information yourself and challenge these debt collectors and corporations if you are in a dire situation where you feel like you can't pay the debt. I'm not against paying debt. Okay. If you have the money, pay your debt. Okay. But if you don't, watch this video. Okay. Or if you want to learn how to do it, then by all means, govern yourself accordingly. But I'm not telling you to dive into something that could put you in a detriment. If you don't know how to do anything that I'm about to talk about, or if you don't believe it, do not do it. Okay. So essentially everything that I'll be getting my information from is online. I'm going to be going based off the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. I'm going to be going based off the Truth in Lending Act. And again, you can go and essentially look this stuff up yourself. All right. Now, first things first, man, I want to talk about what is considered a invalid debt. Okay. Essentially, an invalid debt is any debt that is outside the statutes of limitations. Okay. And, I would look at your state and I would base your statutes of limitations off of your state. Every state is different. And it's just as simple as a Google search. It's just as simple as looking this stuff up. All right. Number 2, debts you don't legally owe or lawfully owe. Okay. And then debts, and this is a key word, that is not verified by the debt collector. And I teach a real simple debt validation process in my videos and how you can use administrative presentments to essentially enforce the company to prove that the debt is actually yours. Okay. And you can use any discharge method, but if you cut this with an administrative process that challenges the company on the validity of the debt, they are going to be unable to prove it. They may be able to prove that you agreed in the contract. They may be able to prove some things, but it's going to be impossible for them to validate debt. Okay. Now, one of the things that debt collectors do is they fail to provide proper documentation. Okay. Because they fail to provide the proper documentation. This puts them in a position where if you go in the court of law and you cannot prove that you owe a debt, or you can't prove anything, you feel me? I had to turn down the exposure. If you can't prove anything, man, the judge is going to look at you crazy. You feel me? So, number 1, let's understand what would be considered an invalid. On the premise of House Joint Resolution 192, on the premise of who the creditor is, when you start to ask a company specific questions like that, you want to invalidate the debt yourself. All right. So step 1, after you understand what is considered invalid debt, You can go to the FDCPA and you can cross-reference all the information through my page and all of that. And you will understand that all debt could be considered alleged. Okay, all debt can be considered invalid until somebody proves it. Okay, so 15 USC 1692G, I have a video talking about this, but you have a right to request validation. You have a right to, write a letter in the form of a debt validation letter and say, hey, look, this is not a refusal to pay the debt, but if you can prove that this debt is valid, I will agree to your contract, okay, under my stipulations, but you must provide this, and this, okay? So for example, a typical validation letter should include the proof of ownership. It should include the original agreement, all right? It should include the breakdown of charges. It should include the information that you need. All right, let's pause for a second. So essentially, just to bring it back, if they cannot provide proof, they cannot legally collect. And that's the whole premise of debt discharge, okay? Number one, debt discharge is more of an understanding. If you understand that debt is something that is already discharged, if you understand that your bills are prepaid, if you understand, according to the FDCPA, that you have a right to challenge a person on whether a debt is real, if you understand that debt isn't real, then it's not about you fighting the company on whether it exists or not. It's about you placing yourself in a position and them in a position where they cannot prove it. Okay? Step 2, understand your statutes of limitations. Okay? Look at your state. And for example, if I look at the statutes of limitations in Maryland, it says in written contracts in Maryland, the statutes of limitation is 3 years from the date of the debt is due. So written contracts, creditors have 3 years to file a lawsuit for written contracts. In open accounts, creditors have 3 years to file a lawsuit for open accounts, such as credit cards. So according to this statute in Maryland, okay, after 3 years, then just according to the statutes of limitation, and they cannot collect on the debt. They cannot sue. And this is why creditors take so long to sue. This is why they try to redate your loan and redate every single thing. But if you're on top of it, they cannot do it. Okay. Also, okay, when you start to pay your debts, that's when the clock restarts or resets. So make sure I won't tell you not to pay a debt, but if it's a company that you know you're not trying to pay anymore, I won't say it, but just govern yourself accordingly, because once you pay it, you reset the clock. Okay. And also at the same time, you want to check the time and, how much time you have in your state for a company to legally sue you for the debt. Now, if you started to challenge the debt, then there's a different time frame. They actually have less time to come up with that information. All right. Step 3, use the power of a non-response. Okay. Essentially, when you send a company a debt validation letter and they do not respond, that's when they are essentially in dishonor. Okay. They are not complying or performing on a contract that you sent to them, where you asked them for specific documentation that will prove whether or not they are allowed to collect on a debt. And, if they do not, if they fail to respond, then they acquiesce. They're essentially saying they can't prove the debt. Okay. And according to the FDCPA, they have, 30 days to respond. Okay. So in this process, what you can do is, and this is how I kind of fast track the process, is if you send them a debt validation letter, they do not respond, you want to send the non-response evidence to your credit bureaus. Well, your credit agencies, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, and you want to show them that, hey, I tried to send a debt validation letter to them and they did not respond. So that means they acquiesce. Okay. So essentially you want to send a follow-up letter and you want to demand the debt be removed. Okay. No response equals a no legal obligation to pay. No response means no legal obligation to pay. So if you send them a negotiable instrument and do everything that you believe according to the law, you're right, and they just play with you, they don't send a sufficient response, they ignore you. Like people always say, well, they keep sending me a bill. If they are not responding to your validation letter, then you are not legally obligated to pay. According if your debt validation letter is challenging them on the debt. Okay. Now, if they respond back, continue to respond back, continue to go back and forth, and continue to have them provide a proof of claim that proves that they are legally able or lawfully able to come after you for the debt. All right? Ain't gonna worry about that. Number 4, protect yourself from harassment. All right? You have rights under the FDCPA where the debt collector cannot call you at odd hours, use abusive language or obscene language. Okay? They must stop calling if you request communication in writing only. You can send them a cease and desist letter, and you can challenge a company on whether if they do not respond effectively or if they do not respond in regards to the disputed debt, then you don't owe them a dime. Okay? So essentially a cease and desist letter, you can ChatGPT it. I may link it or put a picture right here of an example cease and desist letter. But I want to talk about some common myths about debt collection. Okay. Myth 1, ignoring debt makes it go away. Okay. Just because you get a letter and you don't want to respond to it, or you just throw the paper away, or you just completely turn a blind eye to it, doesn't mean that it will go away. Okay. Because just like if they don't respond, they acquiesce. If you don't respond, you acquiesce. So you don't want to do that. Myth 2, paying in small amounts will get them off your back. No, it can restart your statutes of limitations. If anything, if it's a debt that you are planning to discharge, use your brain. I won't even say it. Myth 3, you can go to jail for unpaid debts. You cannot go to jail for unpaid debts. Okay? Yes, they could probably, sue you and this, that, and the third if you don't carry out the process properly. But essentially, any debt that is considered a civil debt, that you cannot go to jail for this. So those people in the comment section that will say, hey, look, you'll go to jail and this, that, and the third. No, you won't. Okay? So you can exercise this process as much as you want. The worst that can happen is that your credit report will take a hit. And if you understand credit repair, it's an information battle. So essentially, you have to do the same thing. You can do the same thing with the credit bureau or credit agency. You can tell them to validate the information. If they're unable to validate the information properly according to the FCRA, then that information should be removed from your credit report. But even still, you have a right to privacy. Even still, you have a right to essentially for them to provide fair and accurate reporting. Okay? Fair and accuracy means whether something is not whether something is right or wrong. Accuracy is the measurement of value. Okay, so if there is the measurement of value, then it shouldn't be a detriment to you. Okay, now if something's a detriment to you and they're making money off of you, then that is considered an unfair practice. All right, now here's some actionable steps. All right, validate the debt with the letter. Okay, check the statutes of limitations in your state, demand removal of unverifiable debt, and protect yourself from harassment using cease and desist letters. Okay. If you do these things, take these steps right here, coupled with debt discharge methods, you're going to be in a very favorable position when it comes to that debt. All right. Now, just to pretty much end this off, because today is my birthday. I turned 28 today, and I'm super blessed to be able to have this conversation with you guys. Super blessed to be able to, be here today. I've been doing this since, I would say, 2021. I started doing this when I was 24 years old, so it's been 4 years. And I may do a separate video on just being blessed to be able to age and stuff, but again, and this journey has been a ride. And I can only just say that I'm super grateful, super blessed at the people who have been along with me during the ride. And what I have for you guys is a birthday gift. All right, down below, you can be able to get a majority of my products for $28. To complete that guide, $28. All right, you can get the Fund Yourself pack at $7. You can get many other products and services, $17. January 7th, it's a national holiday, right? So once again, thank you guys for tapping in with me. I'm drooling right now because, you know, I got some food ready for me. And I want to end you off with this, right? Your money is your power, and don't let anyone take it from you, right? 2025 is a time of taking your power back, okay? I love you guys. I appreciate you for watching this all the way to the end. And if you got to the end, comment the word discharge, and I'll see you in the future.